What if I told you your approach for Meshtastic maybe has been wrong this whole time? Sure, we need bigger antennas, we need higher gain, better solar panels, extra batteries, but I think we've been missing something. And I want to help you find that out in this video. Get information, give information. All right, so we've had a community mesh network here in my local town for probably a couple of years now. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. But then I'll still see some people on my Instagram or some YouTube videos saying that they just don't get the coverage out of it. Again, it is line of sight. Meshtastic's line of sight, so you have to be up high on a hill, yeah, or on a tower or something like that to get make your relays up as high as they can. We do that with commercial radio. We do that with ham radio. We always put our repeaters as high as we can, because if it's down low, it's not going to serve any purpose. It's not going to help out or anything. So what repeater owners do is they get their radios, their repeaters up on the tallest mountain they can find, maybe the tallest building in the community, but they're always looking to expand and get better coverage. Daniel from Spec 5 reached out to me and wanted to partner with our channel, and I appreciate that. And my approach has always been to do something a little different. We all see a lot of the devices they have that that kind of a lot of us have. So I was looking for something to help them stand out different than anything else in the mesh community. So I talked to Daniel a little bit about the relay that they offer. I said, to be honest, I said, I feel that's a weak point in our mesh community. There's not a lot of commercial grade, relays that's out there. What's the difference between commercial grade? Maybe not 3D printing everything, something that can handle high winds. But we got to talking, and he sent me a couple, and I told him I had a commercial site that's offered to us, one of the highest points in the town. And it's not even, honestly, it's not even my town. It's a community 30 miles north of us here. But again, it's about community and helping build that. So the talk I want to talk to you a little bit about today is not only show you the Spec 5 relay and go through it, but I also want to delve into how to grow your mesh with building that community relationship. You see, before you even get the hardware, you need a place to put it. Our community has kind of, we're in a really hilly terrain down here. We've always had issues with repeaters getting good coverage. It's just part of the nature of the beast with these hills. And, we're not in Kansas where it's flat terrain and you can talk for hundreds of miles. Or in Colorado, let's say like Denver, they put a repeater up on the mountains there, and it covers that whole all the way from Fort Collins down to was that Colorado Springs. I'm just using that as an example. I don't know really if there is a mountain pass between Colorado Springs and Denver, but just using that as an example. We may be able to get 20 miles of radius here, take the exact same radios and put it on a mountain out there, terrain's flat, they can get 100 miles. Just using that as an example, but that's how line of sight works with VHF, UHF, and we're talking about 900 megahertz with these mesh devices. So it's even worse. It's more critical to have that line of sight. So it's easy to say, okay, well, let's just go find the highest point in our community and start putting those around. Another thing you could do is the antennas, the mesh that you put on your house. Now, if you're up high, consider making it a relay. If you got really good, clear view of the whole community where you're at a high point, make it a relay. If you don't, consider making it a client. Save those relays for your highest points in the cities. Most of that is commercial, locations. I want to delve into just a little bit about how we built ours here. And it's going to come down to something non-technical. It comes down to basically community building. You see, what we did is when I first became radioactive, or we call it radioactive for fun, but in my local community, the first thing I did is I started approaching my local ham club. Now, sometimes ham clubs might be a little different. It's just like any other part of life. You have interesting people, you have some weird people, you have normal people, you have whatever. It's just the way we are. It's difference in personality. So I was pretty fortunate here in my area. We have a very welcoming community in Ham Club, and we actually do a lot of what we call boot camp classes where we help new people get their license. We're always doing a lot of public stuff with the community. That's a key thing. So I went and joined the club, and everybody seemed nice. They warmed up to you, but I'm pretty easygoing personality, so I think that's a key thing to have is easygoing personality. Don't wear your feelings on the sleeves, as they say. Be a little tougher skin. People are going to say something that offends you. They don't always mean to be, mean like that. So sometimes just let it go off and worry about it later. So take that trait. You're going to find that. So I started working with my local ham club, volunteering. I like doing parks on the air. There was a couple members that had never done it before. So they start going with you. You kind of go out with them. You take them out. And then the club starts seeing, okay, you're not here to cause problems or anything. So it's kind of like a normal real life scenario. They start relaxing a little bit around you, and you're just there to help. You give out first. That's one of the key things about building that community. What can you bring to the table? See, some people join the clubs just to, hey, can you program my radio? Can you do this for me? Can you do that? And honestly, that kind of wears you out after a while. What can you provide? What kind of service? You don't have to be a tech. Not all of us are technicians, and I'm not saying the class of license. I'm just saying, some of us don't build our own radios or get in there and solder. But some of us are really good about. I'll tell you one of my weaknesses. Let's just use that. I'm not very good at if I'm trying to put something together. Um, I had to have, like, we did a code building class the other day, a little CW project build, and I had the printout. The printout was a little confusing to me at times, but then you had these mechanical guys that's what they do. They're like shop workers or working on auto cars or anything like that. They had it done in no time. Where it took me a little bit longer. But what I did is, one of them would help me out a little bit, but now where my strong point is maybe programming or doing some of the soldering or something like that. So we all have specialties, I guess you could say, or strong points. Let's do it that way. Well, you may have a strong point that somebody else doesn't. So what the part of community is everybody's working together on each other's strong points. We don't all need to be engineers that go and do surface mount technology and work, but and we have a couple of those in our club. So we trade off. Well, they've never done a POTA before. Well, I'm more than willing to take you out there and let's go do a Parks on the Air activation. That's what I'm saying. You work together. Well, then they found out that I like sky warning and do storm spotting, and I've been really active in that for a long time. So they started inviting me to do that and be a little more involved with them. Slowly, the club starts opening up. They found out I like Meshtastic, so they're like, "Hey, would you want?" Because most clubs are looking for talks or things to discuss or to participate in their monthly meetings. They usually all have a monthly meeting. So it opened up. And maybe it doesn't open up to you. Maybe they don't even know about Meshtastic. I've got some ham clubs in Arizona and Nevada that I've done over Zoom and done my talk on Meshtastic about. So that happens, and they don't even know about it. There was nobody in their community that can help them with it. So I've offered that up too, just to be able to reach out like that. So maybe your club that you're participating in don't know about Meshtastic. Offer up, say, hey, I'm doing this thing called Meshtastic. I would love to give a talk because several of the clubs struggle to find activities to do during those club meetings. And they're going to try to make those club meetings fun and exciting because that's part of the goal of a club is retention. So they're like, yeah, hey, come on, won't we schedule it? So a couple months down the road, I get in, I do my talk, I have some PowerPoint slides, and I kind of one thing that's important. Let me just say this to you: you need to know what you're talking about. Go in there with confidence. Know what your subject matter is. If you don't, maybe you're not that person. maybe there's a couple of you, and the other, maybe you're the engineer type, but somebody else, they are more of a public person or can talk. And I want to think of it as like a PIO, public information officer. See, most law enforcement has that, or most commercial businesses have that. They'll have a somebody that's going to speak on behalf of the either the city, the county, or whatever it is that we're talking about at the time. So that person is not going to be the person that stumbles or has a hard time getting along with people. They're going to be the one that's, easy to communicate and communicate well. So let me just start by saying if that is not you, then maybe you need to find someone in your club or community that is, because that's what you want. That's who you're going to put out as the face. You don't want to put the people that has social anxiety or has struggles to communicate effectively. So that's another key point I want to point out too. Have and maybe we don't use PIO, but public information officer or something like that, a spokesperson for your club or your group. Maybe your group. Let's say it this way too. Maybe you're in a community or a prepper club, whatever it may be, a disaster preparedness group, and you want to be able to join with the local ham community and say, hey, what do you bring to the table? So maybe you're not a ham yet, but you're wanting to get into it. So start going to the ham clubs. That's a really great place to start, is to get into the ham clubs. Why is that? They've already done a lot of your work. A lot of these hams have already gone out. They have repeaters up. They know They know commercial sites. They know the high points in the area. They know the low valleys. They know where RF is going to work the best. So I really highly recommend starting at the ham club, but don't go in with the approach of, hey, I need this. You go in with, what can I provide? There's many times they do like field days, they do different radio activities, and they could just use a hand helping put up they'll talk you through it. Hold this, pull this wire, do this. It's not, maybe not labors. Maybe you're a great cook. We got this guy that bakes in one of the clubs that's north of us, and he comes down every once in a while and will just bring like 30 cinnamon rolls that are just homemade, amazing goodness. And I'm just gonna say he's welcome at my club anytime. So whatever you offer, bring that to the table. Bring what you can to the table. You bring something to it, and then as you build those relationships, when you have a need, well, you've already contributed a lot. You've already helped a lot. So, well, what can we do? So we did Winterfield Day at my club. I provided my trailer, my RV. I'm like, hey, it's welcome. Welcome to use it. It's set in storage. We didn't turn the water on in it or anything like that, but we had a safe, dry, warm place to do, radio out of. So always be willing to contribute. Now, once you get to that point, something that happened with me is they knew that I like to do disaster communications. They found that out, and I liked helping people be prepared and stuff like that. So I got brought into a what our county here calls a LEPC meeting. I don't know if that's what is a nationwide term. This is kind of a new avenue I'm going, and it stands for Local Emergency Planning Committee. So most counties, most cities have a emergency manager. Most counties have an emergency manager, and a lot of these people meet together. We meet monthly now. So now I'm not only have I brought something to the table for the local ham community, but our local ham community has been going to the LEPC meetings and bringing their abilities. See, sometimes those local law enforcements and fire departments, if something happens to their radio, they don't play radio like we do. They don't know about doing a simplex repeater. They don't know about doing quick backup, RF backup, or their batteries are dead. Well, they don't think that way. That's not they're putting out fires. They're thinking, what kind of is it? Am I running a 5-inch line to this engine? How many pounds per pressure? See, I can't even speak that language, but that's their mentality. You know how many chest compressions for CPR? That's what their specialty is. So our LAPC committee they've made it a point to make sure our local ham club is represented there. and because we can bring in an emergencies. And I'll tell you what's helped a lot with this, out of bad things sometimes good things happen. So after the North Carolina event, and the nationwide found out like how valuable ham radio is. I mean, that has been a huge thing for us. I think nationwide. And I'd be interested to find out if you've noticed an uptick in communities saying, "Hey, why can't we want to get involved with the ham community?" So let me know if you've seen an uptick in that in your area. We have tremendously here, and we are kind of a rural area here, so maybe that's why is we don't have plus the terrain. Like I said, we're kind of not in a flat spot, so uh, let me let me tie off of that a little bit because actually the LEPC meeting, they said, we'd like to bring me in. Somebody else, my club president, said this to them. We'd like to bring a guy in to talk to you about Meshtastic. We think it could be valuable for your community, the emergency community. So that's how I got involved. I'm like, they said, "Hey, would you go do it?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I go in. I'm a little nervous because, you got the sheriff there, you got, 4 or 5 fire chiefs from the community and the county. The hospital was there. I'm trying to think, there were several people represented there, different agencies, we should say. And so I gave my talk on Meshtastic. Now, you got to learn to read your audience. My audience wasn't a family that's trying to stay together and talk. So I kind of presented Meshtastic in a way from a how I thought an emergency community could benefit. So the first thing I did, straight out of the gate, as we say, I told them up front, I said, this is not going to become a primary form of communication for you. And I said, some of you probably were in the military, you had the PACE plan, you had your primary, your alternate, contingency, and emergency. I said, this is probably going to fall around emergency, somewhere in there. I said, but it's a cost effective, cheap. I don't like using the word cheap, but it's a great way, cost effective way to be able to provide backup communications uh, with solar. That's a huge thing because and I tell them and I showed them some examples, and then I take these relays in like I'm going to show you here in a little bit, and I mean this is all stuff contained right here. It's not like most of these tower sites, they're used to having full racks, taller than this rack back here, equipment rack with 19-inch rails, uh, hardline, big old coax going up to the roof, and commercial tower. And I'm like, dude, this is it right here. It's all self-contained. But now I won't take anything that's. I'm cautious about 3D print. I'm not going to show them a 3D printed box or something that's going to go on a commercial site. Again, my goal is to be commercial. And you're talking about commercial businesses, fire departments, cities, administrations, police department, sheriff's department. They're used to dealing with say like Motorola radios that are, the best of the best, and they're used to spending several $1,000s on a handheld radio, multiple thousands. Whereas hams, we may be spending $50. So there's a big difference between like a Baofeng and a Kenwood radio that's tried and true to water resistant, and drop and shock resistant. So they're used to that. So I'm not going to approach them with just a like a 3D printed and wires looking janky and just messed up. Presentation is key. You want to present the best to them and show that. So again, my goal, I want to help the community, but then again, by helping the community, it's going to help benefit my family no matter what. So I'm going to do what I can to help them because in the long run, it's going to benefit me and my personal family. So like if the grid goes down from a storm or something like that, we'll still have the abilities to text. If the cellular lines are down, we'll still be able to text each other through the Meshtastic. So I gave my presentation for Mesh to the LEPC. There was a couple questions that came up, so I was like, "Oh, that's always good. If there's questions, that means they were at least listening." So I answered those questions, but then after it was over, they dismissed, and like for example, the local sheriff asked a question about it. Um, one of the larger fire departments. It's a county fire department. They had some specific. He says, I have a concert venue. I'm going to change this. Let's just say an air show. It's not. It's a concert venue, but let's say at this air show, and I actually know a guy in town here that he goes to Vegas to the air show. They have the exact same issue here a little bit. There's so many people that comes to this venue, the concert venue, that the cell phones don't work. Not only that, but because it's in a rural area, this concert venue doesn't. When the fire department's down there, their regular two-way radios are not able to make it into the repeater that's, I don't know, 40 miles away or something like that. Again, we're in a hilly, terrainy area. So now they can't use their two-way radios. And I said, well, and so instead of just saying mesh, I just said, well, did you guys try texting? He said, there's so many people that come to this, just like at the air shows in Vegas and stuff. There's so many people there. The population's so great that the cell phones don't work. They'll jam up because the cell phone towers only have room for so many voice calls and so many data. The data usually doubles the voice. So pro tip here, if you're ever in a situation and the phone line's down, at least send a text first. I tell my kids, always text first, then try to call. Let that text go through. There's a good chance it'll go through before the voice call does. But let's get back on topic here. If so, he's like, I don't have a way to communicate anything like that. I was like, this is what you need. Throw up we can either deploy, and again, I'm even providing my car. I've got the Tahoe. I got portable mast. I said, all we got to do is set this up and have little trackers for each one of the officers or the fire department or whatever, EMTs. And they don't even have to text. You get the kind that's got the GPS built into it and let it send their positions. Now, what they can do in their command center is they're used to having a screen on the wall that shows, because again, a lot of these radios, the nice commercial ones, have GPSs in it. And they actually track and keep up with all their assets driving around the community, or in this situation, the venue. So now they can see who's where, and they can actually reach out to them that way via text. Now, again, as a ham radio operator, I'm thinking, okay, well, so I provided a service to him that's valuable. But then not only that, but I'm not been letting that lie. In my back of my head, I'm like, okay, he's still, do they not have a simplex? Maybe they don't have a simplex frequency set up on their radio. Again, a firefighter, if I go say, hey, do you have simplex on that? He'll be like, dude, all I do is turn this knob right here. I go from fireground 1 to fireground 2 to TAC 1. That's their terms. That's all they know it as. They don't, not all of them. I'm just saying, most of them. Let's circle back. One of my ham clubs meetings, we had the 2 repeater owners that had 2 linked repeater systems here in this area. They came and did a presentation and showed us how those repeaters are linked and what they do. Some of them are RF linked back and forth, but there's some sites, because we're such a rural area, that they were actually able to use radio over IP. Boom, a light goes off my head. Radio over IP. Fire department's having trouble talking so far away. Why don't we get together? I've got a Starlink Mini. Why don't we throw a simplex, receiver up, a radio hooked to a radio over IP network back here somewhere in our community, linked to one of their systems. So I started visiting with the repeater owners, and I'm like, dude, so tell me a little more about this. I said, this is what I want to do. I want to help provide a service. Again, you're providing service. It's not a take relationship. It's a give and take. So we're supposed to have another meeting with them here this month, and I want to present a couple things to that particular fire chief. Say, hey, I've been thinking about this, and not only do I think we can do your texting or position reports using Meshtastic, but I also think we can maybe help you out with your radio issues too. So now the fire department, let's talk about community and how this works. So now this fire chief's starting to like ham radio, because we're not a bunch of weirdos. We're not just nerds in a basement playing with radios and stuff. But we're actually contributing to our community. there is a large group in my club that are very proactive to community and assist in our community, however that may be. When you go to do, maybe you get asked to deploy with a MCOM or emergency situation, and you're helping your, particular, let's say the fire department still, maybe you're asked to come and provide relay communications from that location down there back to here. Well, you don't go in and just run the place. You stay in your lane, you do what they ask you. And what happens in the past is a lot of these guys, that super trooper mentality I tell you about, and that's the super ham, or we'll call them sad hams, that's pretty popular now. They try to go above and beyond it, and then they get out of their lane. And when these law enforcement and community people like this, they deal with the incident command system, ICS. If you're not familiar with it, study that before you even try to get in there, because they have block block diagrams. Everybody stays in their lane. This is what your job is. You don't go over here helping him. Because that incident commander is going to look for you here, but you're over here doing something in the kitchen. Stay in your box. So they've had issues with that in the past, but now they're opening up. Relations are great. Fire chief says, "Hey, we've got a repeater setting up on this water tower of ours. There's an antenna up there. There's no repeater. If you guys want to use it for your ham club, feel free to." What? That's awesome. Here I've been wanting to find sites for repeaters or whatever. Not only that, but a lot of the fire department wants to do ladder training, so they'll even offer sometimes. I'm not saying it's a good always, but sometimes they'll offer to use their ladder trucks to even practice climbing up to the top of the water tower and do training. So now you don't have to hire a climber, you don't have to have all that. Let them do it, and so really ultimately it's a win-win. But again, my key point here is to provide community service. Now, I told you about my ham clubs and I gave my mesh talk. Well, now that presentation went really good at my local club. So what happens next? The club north of us, about 30 miles, they're like, "Hey, could you come and do that at our club sometime?" Yeah, love to. And it's actually a bigger club in a bigger city. I'm in there, I've given my presentation. There's a couple key people there. One happens to be like the I don't know what is it. I need to look his official title up, but he's like the communications director or he provides communications and helps with the communications for a hospital system. There's 5 of them in our region, and 2 in one town, and separated by 30, 40, 50 miles, something like that. So they've got 5 campuses in, let's say, a 38 county area that they cover. And he's looking to get communications back and forth. We've been working with him with WinLink and stuff like that. So I digress. But let's say he was at the meeting. I gave my presentation. Also at the meeting just happened to be one of the state patrol. He's not a state. He works for the state patrol, and he's the communication guys for the state patrol for our region of state patrol down here. So he goes and he does a lot of the work on the towers. He's responsible for the repeaters. He knows a lot of sites and stuff. So, and he's actually one of the main guys in one of the linked repeater systems. So he has access to a lot of these sites. So in my presentation, they already know me. I kind of started off with a few jokes, kind of threw some stuff in there. They know I'm lighthearted, easygoing. So I'm like, hey, we could stick one of these and they were getting a new tower down here by us. And I got to tell you, this site was amazing. I'll sneak a picture or two in there, but I took my drone down, filmed the installation for them. And again, I'm providing them something. And in my speech about, I'm like teasing. I'm like, hey, there'd be a good site for mesh relay. And he goes, well, you never know. It was kind of a real. I got them laughing. It was a lighthearted moment. But I just threw that little hint. But again, I want to provide them stuff. So I get home and I get a call from my local president of our club. He said, hey, somebody wants you to come to one of the meetings. And so I go up there, and it was the hospital guy. He's like, hey, I really like this. I want to provide you, I want some way to be able to communicate with these campuses. He tells me his needs. And my goal is he doesn't want to be overwhelmed with, 906.3 4 megahertz, or what's the bandwidth? Is it spread? He don't care about that. All he wants is, I need something to work. So he heard about WinLink, and I agreed with him. I'm like, yeah, that's a great way. Again, he thinks ICS forms in his incident commands system. So WinLink sends forms, so he likes that. He wants to do that. So I showed him how I'm set up, and I'm offered to help them set them up on WinLink and how to get them started. So again, I'm providing him something, and he's like, well, I can put these mesh relays on any of our roofs, all of them, whatever. I'm like, oh, yes, okay. Well, let me see if I can get you one. So that's when I reached out to Daniel, and I'm like, Daniel, this is important with Spec 5. I'm like, this is very important to me. I said, we all in the mesh community, we're used to seeing homemade DIY relays that we deploy. And, I've made a few, I got a couple, but these are commercial sites. I said, um, most of them, got to make sure this thing ain't going to fly off and break any, hit anybody. It's got to look appropriate. It's got to look official, and just good quality. So again, we're talking commercial radio versus a Baofeng. And I'm not saying that, the homemade DIY Meshtastics are Baofeng. I'm just saying to the presentation for these commercial places, they're expecting commercial quality, if you understand what I mean. They're gonna be like, dude, somebody 3D printed that. In the back of my head, is this gonna even live up to the sun? Is it gonna it's gonna get rained on? Is it gonna, so I'm not knocking the other. For my personal stuff, yeah, I'll make it. I'll do, do what I need to. But a lot of these places and these venues are looking for, top quality, something that's dependable, not going to fall apart, and they don't want the liability. Let's just put it to you that way too. So I visited with the guy. I'm like, yeah, I can get you something. And so when I reached out to Daniel Spec 5, and he's like, dude, you're right. Let's make a campaign talking about how to build community, and what we're doing. What we're doing here. We want to help you get that to yourself. And honestly, if you have questions, maybe you're not very good at site surveys. Um, I usually start with just a drive around town. I'm like, okay, I know a rock quarry is a really high point in my area. I know this particular business is a high point. Start that way. And if you need help with it, if you're questioning how signal paths work, I've done a video on it. I'll link it up here. But if you have any questions like that, reach out. Because again, it's not about what can you provide me, but it's a community thing. I feel like if I'm helping you, it'll get repaid to me in the long run. It's just the way I feel. Can I just even say it's the golden rule? Let's just do that. I like to help you because I believe it'll come back to me. So I told this hospital, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So Spec 5 sent me a couple of these units to demonstrate, and I've got one here to use. But I put the one up. He liked it. This guy's like, dude, this looks great, and they got it, installed it, mounted up there. The wind's blowing like crazy up there. It's high wind, so I didn't have any questions if solar panel going to break off or anything like this. Or we got it mounted. They actually took me up there, but because of their insurance, the 2 workers of the hospital had to go up on top and actually mount it. And I just supervised from the roof at the main level. Due to the high winds, it was really windy. But and that's something to think about. If you are trying to build something, just know these high points like that are very strong winds, stuff like that's going to be an issue. So I got that put up, and we got it activated. He had 3 or 4 volunteers from the hospital that was part of his communication team. We all worked together. I went ahead and programmed all their handheld radios, different brands and stuff. Some of them somebody made a 3D printed their own case or this or that. But I took time and sat with them through lunch, programmed their radios, just made sure they were all good to go. I emailed them actually today. It's been about 2 or 3 weeks now, maybe a couple weeks. And everybody's like, yeah, it's still working great up here. Good signal, getting out and all that. So I was like, cool, that was really fun. So even before that, I want to give you an approach that I made. So that's one way to get out. Start giving to your community. Now, in my local town, I may come across as comfortable, but there's times I get scared just talking to somebody, cold talk. Let's take all that. I'm not real comfortable with like just going knocking on a door and say, "Hey, can I put this mesh up on your roof?" Or I get a little nervous about it. We all get the little bugs and kind of breaking ground there and stuff. So I knew this one place. I've actually sent some reels from up there. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see a cow on wheels, cell on wheels cow. They had a mobile antenna set up there for cellular on wheels. So I knew this place was a high place, and when I scope out my town, as I'm driving around, I'm like, okay, if I'm up here, I can see pretty much the whole town. So I have some dead areas that don't work, like to the north and to the west, and maybe, but anyways, for the main community, it's like a dream location. I pulled in there a few times, different days, and I would go in there and just I seen some guys working one time. I just like, man, I just need to build the confidence to go in there and talk to somebody. I had the relay with me one time, and one of the smaller ones. When I got off of Etsy, I took it in and had it with me, and it's like, man, I just need to go in there and talk to him. So I pulled up. This gentleman was just getting out of his Jeep, and it was kind of a parking lot that's separated from the main business. So it's up at the high point. So I was like, okay. Had my window down and said, "Hey, sir, how are you doing?" And he said, "Good." I said, "I just was curious. Who could I talk to about, I want to do this. I have these little nodes." And my approach, again, was different. I'll try to tell you a little bit of it. I said, I have this solar node, this little radio. I didn't say solar node. I said, I have this little radio that's solar powered. And basically, it's going to provide communications, a backup communication plan for our community. So there's no money exchange. It's not like a service I'm selling. It's actually kind of like ham radio. I said it's all volunteer, and I said I've been working a little bit with the city, and we're trying to deploy a few of these out to just try to have a backup plan for the community. I said we found that, after like North Carolina, you know, there's a lot of weaknesses, and it's good to have backups. Not just if you lose your main, you still have some form of backup communications. And I said, I just kind of, maybe hide it back here on one of these back fences. No towers, nothing like that. I'm just like somewhere here out of the way. He goes, well, I'm actually the one you talked to. I'm like, oh, okay, well, cool. And he said, I own it. I said, very cool. And I said, well, I said, just, this is it. I showed it to him, a little, solar panel and the box on the back. And I said, somewhere, I was just thinking if I could mount it somewhere like on your fence, hidden back here out of the way, nothing intruding or anything like that. And he goes, no, I like the idea. He said, and I don't want you putting it down low where like there's been some homelessness go through and some vagrants. He said, and sometimes they'll tear up stuff down there at ground level. He said, if you want, here's a light pole right here. And it's kind of up away from the rest of the parking lot, but it's a good spot. He goes, why don't you mount it up there on top of that? And he said, I even have a lift here. You can just go grab it right. He's like, right to it right now. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't even really ready all the way. I said, wow. My jaw was on the ground. I, almost didn't believe it because it was that easy. And I said, well, can I, and I was questioning. I'm like, well, can I give you my cell phone number just in the event if something happens, you can reach out to me if you need me to take it down or anything. And so he gave me his name, and his name was a very well known name in our region. And I'm like, that's a real guy. That's him. So I was like, wow, okay. I chose not to use the lift because if and I've had to go back and do like firmware updates or something. And if I would have used his lift, which would have got me really high up there on the light pole, um, if I would ever done maintenance or something, I'd have had to arrange the lifts. I said, well, I'll just go home. I'll grab my ladder. I've got a little extension ladder, and I'll just lean it up there and put it high enough. Because honestly, that 10-foot difference or whatever it may be wasn't going to make enough difference in our up because we were really high up anyway. So that's how I got my one of my relay nodes put up out there. It's real low maintenance. You know, hardly ever go back out there. You guys know these have a couple batteries in them, solar panel. Uh, not much to do with it. So I'm really low maintenance for him. And that's a key selling point, I think, for them, is to let them know that, you know, I don't need to come in your business. You know, I can do upgrades from here. I didn't even get into the details. Key selling point for him is it's community. I'm not making money on it. It's more of a community service. I'm not trying to do a business here. And if you would like, I would also like to. If you would like your crew here to have access to it, I'm willing to teach them how it works and give you as a company, your own business, some means of backup. And then I also said, hey, look, I've got a retired police car. If you would like, I'll even drive. Since you're helping me, again, I want to go above and beyond. I'll come up on like a Saturday night, just do a quick drive through your lot. If there's people up here messing around, you know, that may add a deterrent. So I'm not saying I'm trying to be law enforcement. I'm just at this point, I'm like, dude, whatever you need. You know, if you want my dog, if you want my kid, no, I'm just kidding. But I was just so shocked that he was willing to do that. So again, another commercial site. Now, let's jump ahead. You remember the guy I was telling you about with the linked repeater system in our area? So he gets the granddaddy of all granddaddy repeater sites down here. This building's probably 400 feet taller than where I'm at that particular site I just told you about, which is one of the highest in the area. But I told you I'm deaf to the north, and I've got a mountain right behind me. His site is actually up on top of that mountain, so you get up there, it's clear visibility, hundreds of miles away. I'm like, wow. So I go out there. This is not a tower that you would normally think. It's actually one of those tourist locations where you go up in the elevator, and then it's a lookout tower. You can look all the way, 360 degrees. Well, up on top of that tower was a like a lookout, and it's not open to the public, that part. But up there they had this cellular site, and cellular company was on it. Well, the cellular company decided to pull out. I don't know. It was a bad relationship he had with them. So the antennas are still out there, but this equipment was pulled out, and somehow this guy just came together with the owner of this place. Somehow he met him in somewhere, and they started talking, and the tower owner's like, well, and of course this guy, he does that as a profession. He works on towers. Now he doesn't climb them, but he does a lot of the RF and responsibility of towers for the highway patrol. So he has a little bit of a backing in that sense, and the guy's like, dude, I've got this. I'm supposed to put a light up here on top of this tower, and there's no way up there. The way they built this, there's like a little hatch at the top. You crawl through that hatch. There's no safety railings or nothing like that. And OSHA's like, no, there's no way we're gonna let anybody on top of that. So he's like, well, I want to provide something to you. You provide. He said, why don't we? If you'd let me put my repeaters up there on top of that, we put the equipment in the room that nobody ever goes in. He said, we'll get the community together. We'll rent a truck or a lift, not a lift, but a crane, and we can go up there if you allow us to put our antennas on the top. We'll cover the cost of putting antennas up there, and while we're up there, we'll go ahead and replace that light, get you up to code for the FAA and everything. This guy, now the club, they had to. I mean, it was like over $10,000 to rent that. How does a club get that? Well, most of the ham clubs are 501c3. And so this particular club's really good about doing grant writing and underwriting. And so they were actually had been given grants to use towards, emergency communications and stuff like that. So, and to enhance their network. So it's a win-win. Again, using the same thing. He's like, hey, we can help fix your light. In the actual the tower owner, the site owner, actually said we want to help the emergency equipment. we want to help our community by giving that opportunity. We realize we have the highest point in this whole area. Now, it's not a commercial tower site like a cellular site or something like tower. It's a tourist attraction, but they had a way to mount the antennas at the top. They had a room. They have electricity, all that. It's a win-win. So he reached out and he told us all that he would be coming down and announced it in our him emails and stuff. And he said, if you want to come down, I'm like, dude, I'd like to come bring my drone. So I reached out to the guy, said, can I bring my drone? Do you think it's okay? And so I'm not gonna fly it in there on you, but so I shot a lot of B-roll, and I'll stick a couple pieces in here for you just to see it. But I shot some B-roll, and I'm like, dude, I want to give this back to you guys. And now, again, yes, I may have selfish, but my long goal is to get a relay put in there. But that's not my primary. If it doesn't happen, it's okay. But this guy knows me because we've established these relationships, and I'm like, hey, I want to offer you something else above and beyond. Not only can I give you this drone footage, well, his tower climbers were like, dude, we love to have footage like this because they took a basket up and it's kind of a unique situation. So I'm like, dude, I'll provide that. I don't mind. And then I said, well, why don't we do like film a little commercial or something up there? So you get the tower owner up there, and you guys just start talking about. And it don't have to be long, 5 minutes, something that they could share. We want to thank so and so for donating his tower site and allowing the ham community to be on here for emergency response. This is only going to help the community be better. Any of that verbiage is going to make and help that business, look good. You know what I mean? It's not about looking good, but it's going to benefit them, we think. Um, Again, we want to thank you. It's as a ham community, we want to thank you for letting us use your tower site. So it looks good for him, and we want to help him that way. So now we're talking about doing that. We could put that on social media. It doesn't cost that guy any money, but we're going above and beyond. Really, all we were doing, that particular guy, was just putting an antenna repeater system up there. So again, it's all about community building. I know this is a longer video, but I really think it's going to benefit a lot of you guys. So get out there, establish that relationship. Once you establish that relationship, then you will see how doors will open up for you to get those commercial sites. Um, I've got 5 hospitals in our region that I can put meshes on. I did hear from another, so SEMA, we have one of the members of our club works for SEMA, State Emergency Management Agency. It's kind of like the FEMA, but for local. And he's got so many counties that he's over. And he has actually sat through 2 or 3 of my mesh talks. And one of the counties, couple counties away from us, was at a meeting. They were all at a meeting. And the county's like, dude, we had a couple guys in our community that's putting this thing called Meshtastic up. And his ears lighting up. I helped him get on mesh too, but this other county's like, yeah, we these guys have built a network here. We think it could be usable for us in emergency. And so now my local fire chief happened to be there for our city here. He's like, oh yeah, we've been talking about putting that in our town. And I'm like, cool. And then the SEMA guy, he's like, hey, I know a guy that can come and help give the talks and all that. So they're referring back. So what does that do? It's going to benefit the community, but if I have a family channel, now that we're getting this thing all set up and getting all these relays and building a nice mesh that's linking good, now as my family, I don't have to worry about, is she going to hear, my daughter, 16-year-old, going to hear me when I send a text to her through the mesh. It's going to work. It's going to cover. So even though we're on a community mesh, I've got my private channel still set up. That's another thing I sell to these. Not sell. That's you need to be a salesman when you deal with these. You're not making money, but I'm just using that as an example. I tell the fire department, they're like the local. I'm like, dude, you could have your own channel set up on here. Use terms that they're aware of. They're used to like talk groups, like Fire Tech 1, Fire Ground 1. Well, even though they're on Fire Ground 1, not everybody else is going to hear it. So it's encrypted. I share those benefits with them and stuff. So as you go out and approach that, I feel like that's important too. Now, before you even step out to go to those meetings, make sure you have commercial looking equipment. That's going to be the key to this. I just pulled this out of the box. I don't even have it assembled yet, but you know, commercial looking equipment. Not 3D printed. The box itself is an actual electrical box. It's branded, it's molded, everything's, I mean, it's commercial all the way. I'm going to do a separate follow-up video on this since this one's already so long, and we'll kind of go through the unboxing of this. But I appreciate Spec 5 believing in this and this mission and this goal. I put a link down here in the description to go check out this relay. They do have a bunch of, they have the T-Decks. They have a bunch of different mesh out there that they have available. But seriously consider, supporting this. Use this link if you have a hospital or somebody you want to. Now, when you do this the right way, you're not going to be buying the equipment. Again, a lot of these hospitals, the fire departments, a lot of them have budgets to do this. Now, you may have to take your own personal relay in just to kind of give it a demo. Or in my situation, I've already set up somewhat of a network, but we want to make it even better. So I've already got something set up I can test with, so I can actually take the radios in and demo to the fire department or whoever. But I also say now, if we can throw up some more, and the fire department's like, yeah, we got commercial sites, we got a couple of water towers that we own, we could put something up on there maybe. And but before they really want to see it in action. So in order to even pull that off, you have to have some kind of mesh up. So start with doing some your own legwork before you reach out to the commercial, and then throw up some temporary sites if you need to. But you know what? Let them buy this equipment, and if you use that link down below in the description, you'll get a discount with it. And but you let them buy the commercial equipment. You don't buy it yourself. Let them go out buy it, and you can offer, say, hey, when you get the equipment in, be happy to come and help you install it, whatever, program it, because again, they don't know about programming. They don't understand that. So offer up to them, reach out to them, and then keep with me on this channel and make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to follow up this video with a detailed breakdown of this new spec relay that Spec 5 sent me, and it's really nice and it looks clean. The one we put up already, everybody likes it. It looks commercial, and it's holding up really good. So, anyways, thank you guys. Hit the bell, subscribe, like, stay with us. We appreciate the channel's growing, and got a lot of new stuff coming up in the future. Been doing some parks on the air. Got some new QRP radios we've been playing with. So we're having a lot of fun, and we're going to try to keep covering new things for you guys and gals. Again, my slogan: get information, give information. I'm hoping that I have given you some kind of information that could be beneficial to you.